Hey, what's up, Military Millionaires? Today we have a little bit different episode with Brian Marzka, who is the owner of Natural Elevations Natural Office, and he essentially builds really, really high quality standing desks, and not like the thing that goes on top of a desk that you can stand up, but like desks that go up and down at the push of a button. And they're really cool. I'm looking at buying one myself. And we got connected on Vetrepreneur Tribe and started talking about maybe doing a podcast. So this is actually a really cool episode because we talk about everything from getting into sales to getting into the furniture business to building a business to developing a product. But then at the end, we also talk about things like confirmation bias and why watching the news or sports might be hurting you a little bit in your career. So we talk about some really interesting mindset things too that will help you out. And it's just really cool to see someone who's in a completely different industry than real estate, and we agree on so many entrepreneurial and business related topics. So definitely stay tuned and check out this entire episode. You'll get a lot of value out of it. As always, show notes are found at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast. Now relax and enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Military Millionaire Podcast, a show about real estate investing for the working class. Stay tuned as we explore ways to help you improve your finances, build wealth through real estate, and become a person that is worth knowing.
Hey, listen up, guys and girls, active duty and veterans. I have an important announcement to make. May 29th and 30th in St. Louis is going to be the first ever Veterans Live Conference. Now, what this is it is a military real estate investor conference hosted by military real estate investors, spoken at by military real estate investors, and attended by military real estate investors. Obviously, if you are not military, you are welcome to attend. However, it will be geared towards veterans and service members, helping veterans and service members. Myself, the Military Millionaire Community, Stuart Grazier, the Military Investor Network, and Bill Allen of Seven Figure Flipping are all going to be putting this on together, and this is going to be an awesome event. So it's going to be at the Hyatt Regency St. Louis at the Arch, May 29th and 30th. Check out below for a link to register, and I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave from the Military Millionaire Community, and I am here with Brian Marzka, who was a Marine infantry veteran with 2-5 out here in Camp Pendleton, and now he is a business owner with, he owns two different entities soon, Natural Office and Natural Elevations, which I've actually been looking at one of his products for a little while. We got connected on Facebook, and I thought this would be a lot of fun to bring you guys. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh, so I, as you said, I was in the Fox Company 2-5. I was a scout swimmer in the infantry, and going through that process, I'd always thought that I'd end up being an attorney. And then through a little bit of education and talking to some people, I found out that there was attorneys out there at the time making $25,000 a year. And I just never knew in my head that would ever be possible to have a Juris Doctorate and make like $25,000 a year. So I just thought it was an automatic rich button. So kind of went another way. So got out, became a bartender because I thought I was going to go back to school and I could make quick money, work nights, that kind of thing, and kind of decompress from the Marine Corps, and kind of found myself rudderless and not sure what I really wanted to do. And this whole time, my family had always owned small businesses. And when I say small businesses, they were very small businesses. My father was a drain cleaner, and it was just him. And then eventually, when my brother graduated from school, it was him and my brother. And he just kind of had this, he didn't trust anyone to hire employees. So he never wanted to expand he was of that mindset that he was kind of making his own living.
Yeah.
So with that, in high school, I worked for him. When I was like 12 years old, I would work for him. And it was the kind of work where it was like, hey, your hands are small. Dig in that drain and see what you can pull out. And if you can imagine everything that goes into a drain, I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So it was kind of everything I kind of did was running from that. And a guy came into the bar and he told me I'd be good at sales, and he got me to selling carpet, and eventually worked at a radio station, did a couple of other things, and then found myself in the office furniture business. So I wouldn't have known about the industry. You think about office furniture, somebody buys something and then they're done. How much office furniture can people need? But there's all these entities out there. You have every major hospital, they're constantly buying furniture. They buy, like UPMC around here buys about $7 to $8 million a year just in furniture.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a big industry. So I went from kind of worked at a small dealership in Erie, Pennsylvania, and then eventually wanted to get in a bigger market. So I moved to Pittsburgh and I worked in a bigger dealership, and always had my idea of how things should be done, as I think we all do. And, of course, you think you can invent a better wheel. And at some point, working in a dealership, then I worked as a consultant for different manufacturers. I kind of felt like it was time to put that to the test and call myself on my own bull and go, can I actually do this? And I felt confident in my abilities. So fast forward to 2010 and started a company called Natural Office. So once I started Natural Office, it was working as a standard dealer. So an office furniture dealer, if you're familiar with like Herman Miller and Steelcase and Hayworth Knoll, those guys are the big five. So it's basically like being a Chevy dealer or, Kia, whatever brand you can think of. And when you're new starting out, there's not a lot of interest on those guys' part, unless you can come in with a big account, something that's multi-million, and you kind of have to come to the table with that, which nobody's going to give you if you don't have the product and that kind of thing. So you're in this catch-22, right?
Yeah, trying to play chicken or egg.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's played around in that mix for a little bit, ended up getting a contract with the VA because I am a service disabled vet. So I got certified, talked to someone I used to work with who was an interior designer at the VA. I called them day one, probably. I called her and said, I think I just started my own business and I'm not sure where to go. Is there anything you need? She said, give me 2 weeks and let's have a conversation. So we had this meeting in 2 weeks, and first contract, $800. They had some Hayworth workstations, and they said, can you break these down, move them down the hall, and put them in another room? And it was, of course. So there's some subcontractor companies. I got one of them, and then it was me, just in different clothes. And I had been in the industry for like 12 years, but I didn't really know how to take this stuff apart and put it back together. I had an idea. I had seen it done a bunch of times. I had never actually done it. So I was kind of using this installer to figure out, how do I do this? And kind of pretending that I knew what I was doing. So we moved it down. It went successful. It was fine. It's not really that hard. And then little by little, really learned that end of the business. And then saw this gap in the industry, which was kind of like this facility solutions business. So my business is, I get lumped in with office furniture dealers, and we do sell plenty of office furniture, but it was really the service. And then as Amazon and those guys grew, and companies, especially in the tech world, were buying all of their office furniture on Amazon, they then needed somebody to install it. So what happened was, you call a big furniture dealer and they would ask them if they would install it for them. And they say, well, you didn't buy it from us, so good luck, buddy. We're not going to help you out. To me, it was foolish, because it would be a $50,000 installation. To me, it was passing up a sale. So I said, I have no real ethics. I need more money than I need anything else. So of course we'll install it. And then you'd sell them supplemental products. They would say, hey, we need garbage cans. Can I sell those to you? How about this? And you give them a price, that kind of thing. So basically, the best way to describe it is we took that industry, and instead of approaching broad base and a lot of customers, because as small as I was, I couldn't get in front of as many customers as my competitors could. We really launched vertically within that business.
Which I've heard nothing but good things about going vertical. I think that's a brilliant strategy as far as, building out a process. But man, that's a crazy story. I really like, so there's a friend of mine, he calls it the BMW phase, the below minimum wage phase of business. And he says the reason a lot of people fail is they're not willing to, do work for less than what they were making, or do work that they didn't want to do before. So I think it's kind of cool that you tell your story. And one of the first deal you do is, oh, well, I've actually never touched the furniture, but yeah, sure, I'll change clothes and tear that apart for $800, and part of that going to subcontractors or whatever. So I think that's kind of cool. That kind of tells a little bit about your character in all of this, is that, yeah, it wasn't, a lot of people think like, oh, building the business on the side is, it's just one day it just blows up and you're rich and you go solo. It's like, nah, not necessarily.
Is that kind of how you approach it? I mean, I know you have real estate and things like that, and you're still in the Marine Corps. So, I mean, are you real hands-on that way with your property, or?
So I'm trying to do as much of it virtually as possible. So I hired a property manager. I have a really good agent. So I built a good team back in my, where I invest. And so my goal in theory is that I should be able to find a property, send it to my agent, my property manager, and they can do the walkthrough with the inspector. They can send me pictures, videos. And I mean, realistically, I can purchase a property sight unseen for me personally. I bought one or two that I've been in now, but at the time of closing, I was stationed in Hawaii. I negotiated my biggest deal actually in a training evolution in Hawaii. So I've tried to do to spend as little time as possible on it while just building a really good team, just because I don't necessarily have the time. But as far as the below minimum wage side, I mean, the podcast, the YouTube channel, and all of that, I've operated in the red for the last year and a half. I've only just recently, finally, okay, we're not spending money to operate this anymore. So it's, I kind of have that mentality there, but all of it seems to kind of be structured as, how can I get the most done in the least amount of time? Whether that means I'm spending a couple bucks to hire someone to do it or not, but.
Well, that makes sense. Well, and we met in the Vetrepreneur Facebook page, and a constant that I see on there is exactly what you just said, the below minimum wage thing, where somebody was talking about dog training or something like that, and they said, how much should I charge? And people were saying, oh, this isn't worth your time if they're not going to pay you X. It's like there's this vague advice, because if you're in Southern California, that charge is different than if you live in Arkansas. It's just going to be different. And nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that you're good at this. If it was, it's do it for damn near free.
Exactly.
And at least get something out of it. I mean, there's jobs that I've done where it's okay, but you're going to give me a testimonial. And assuming I'm doing a good job,
yeah,
it better be a really good testimonial, because I'm doing this for next to nothing. And that's okay. It's you're building that reputation, and it's supply and demand. And I always viewed it as, how much time do I have and how much money I have? And that dictates the price. It just does. If I'm overwhelmingly busy and there's a job that I'm not that interested in, and we're giving a quote, it's going to be a little bit higher, because it's got to be worth it. And if I have nothing going on, I'm going to be really aggressive, because I have to be. I have to stay in business, and I got to keep things moving.
Yeah, that dynamic pricing. It's just, I mean, it's the same concept with Airbnb or car rentals or everything else, right? As you get 2 or 3 days out, the price is way higher than if you'd booked it 3 months in advance when they had nothing on the schedule.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's not about what you're worth. It's not about what you deserve. I mean, everybody deserves to make millions. whatever. There's a nurse out there that's saving lives that doesn't make enough money to feed her kids, and she deserves millions of dollars, but the market doesn't bear it.
Yeah. Yeah. The market's a reality check, which is, I think a lot of people woke up to that the last 2 days where they're like, hey, wait a minute, what happened to the Dow? Which,
right. Right.
Yeah, whatever. Hey, it is what it is. I think that's kind of been, I don't know about long overdue, but I mean, you see where we're at over GDP on the Dow, and it's kind of crazy. So yeah, whatever. Anyway, before we ramble down the Wall Street road, so now could you tell us a little bit about your product, actually, maybe the development phase, and then actually what your, specifically the product that I'm looking at buying?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Which is my baby project. It's the thing I'm obsessed about. I do all my work for the day, and then I go home and work on the website and that kind of thing. So, as we go through this, guys like me are going to be out of business, standard furniture dealers, right? So most of my competitors, in my belief, it used to be this thing where you bought systems furniture. So you needed a guy like me to come in and tell you, how is this going to go together? Where's the space plan? How many stations can I fit? Because there were all these kind of booby traps if you tried to do it yourself. And like I'd mentioned, if you don't buy someone's product, they don't want to install it. And then that affects the warranty on who installs it, all those things. Well, people aren't in cubicles anymore. Mm. So we would see it, the tech, or the trend always follows tech. Whatever tech companies are doing, that's what your company is going to be doing in 10 years. And I don't mean their products. I mean their office space. I mean, 10 years ago, when Google was providing people with breakfast, everybody was like, they're crazy. Well, now insurance companies are providing people with breakfast. It's just going to happen. So we're seeing that trend and not wanting to be always wanting to evolve and change. Standing desks were, becoming a big part of the market. And about 5 years ago, I ended up in a co-work space, and I had all these tech guys, or nerds, whatever you want to call them, found out I was in office furniture, and they would come to me and they'd ask me for a quote on a stand desk. So I was pumping out these quotes for $800, $1,000 for this desk, and I would never hear from them, and I knew it was the price. You got a guy that's working in a co-workspace. He's trying to start a startup. He's on a shoestring budget, using his own money. He doesn't have the money for that. That's a luxury. So being in the furniture, as long as I have been in furniture, I thought this thing isn't that complicated. It goes up and down. How expensive? Why is this? My cost was $700 or $800 just for the base. So I have to get at least $800 if I'm paying $700, and that's not enough really to sustain your business. So that kind of always felt in the back of my head. And then I don't remember what clicked for me. I would see customers that were buying these online because I thought it's just a simple thing. I need 400 units. It's one line item. And so I decided that I was going to come up with my own, and that I could do a better job. I could provide a better product than what was out there. Not necessarily a better product. I could provide that same product at a much better price, and I knew it had to be the case. So I started doing a ton of research. I looked at my competitors and the pricing and all that stuff. Who was the players in the market? I kind of found a model that, specifically, technically, the technical specs on a model that I felt was the best overall value. So that's 300-pound lift capacity, 1.5 inches per second of lift speed, dual motor, 3-stage. It gives you the widest range, right? So I set that as my goal. And then I started talking to manufacturers. I quickly found out that you're not going to get it built in the United States. Nobody can make the motors. Being veterans, we get caught in this trap, right? I get more crap from the veteran community, or hear the conversations about working with companies overseas. But the problem is when you're talking to American companies, as I did, they literally laughed at me and said, well, how many units do you need? I said, I don't know yet. How much volume are you going to buy a year? I don't know. I'm not an investor with millions of dollars that's like, hey, I'm going to start a production line and I need these parts from you. And we're going to commit to buying 50,000 pieces of, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have experiences like that, but it's demoralizing. So people in these, like the OEM manufacturing, so I had to go overseas, and through some trial and error, I figured out Alibaba, which I'm sure a lot of people out there are very familiar with.
Yeah.
So I started there and searching through products, and then I found a few closest to what I wanted, and I started ordering samples. And you're going to pay a fortune because they're going to air freight it. And these bases are 65 pounds. So I think the ballpark is about $7 a kilo to have something air freighted. So you're paying more for the air freight than you are for the product, but it's worth it in the beginning because like I just did one product at a time. I would bring one in. It took me about a year, and I found a company that had a product that I liked, and I felt like the quality was there. Actually the decibel level was it for me. It was quieter than everybody else's, and I just kind of never, like, who cares? It goes up and down, right? But it's a factor. If you have 40 people in one area, and you're listening to all these desks going up and down, it's kind of like, but yeah, so that's kind of how it started. I went back to them. We went back and forth, and I said, okay, here's what I don't like about your product. And honestly, the customer service was amazing. They were very, very easy to respond. You do have to work basically the opposite. I'm on East Coast time, and essentially when it's noon here, it's midnight there. And if all your responses take 24 hours because you're sending an email during the day, they're responding to it overnight. You get up in the morning, so you're getting one. So you're going to have to just stay up and have conversations with them, because if not, it'll take forever.
Yeah. What country is this?
So it's China.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. China.
Oh, you said Alibaba. I should have known that.
No, well, yeah, but that's not necessarily, because there's a lot of, Pakistan, India. There's some American companies on there too. So it's, it's not the norm. And I think American manufacturers have to kind of get with the times and start putting their product on there. But that's going to be because there's people in India looking for products. And if you're a U.S. manufacturer, it isn't impossible for you to, there's some things we do very well, I feel, here that could be, some of these companies could be doing more exporting, and they're just not up with it. But yeah. So we did that. We kind of came with a final product. I was lucky enough that I had a distribution channel in Natural Office. So Natural Elevations being the brand, in Desk and other entity, but I was selling Natural Elevations products through Natural Office. So I knew I had to keep the products local, because I'm expecting these motors are going to start smoking, and who knows what's going to happen. And I was afraid to sell a lot of them. I didn't want to sell 100 of them, because I thought if there's an issue, I know that I'm going to maintain my reputation by replacing the product or doing whatever I need to do. And I thought I could be stranded with bad tables, no way to replace them. And I could have to go to just one of these manufacturers, one of my, channels here, to buy them and paying $700 a unit to replace somebody's product. I was afraid of that. So I kept it to like 10 units at a time. And as a result, they've been in the market. I have the oldest product I have has been in the market for 3 years. And the only calls I've had about them are user error. So the worst one was somebody called me and had a control box smoking, and I went and I rushed out there thinking, oh no, I'm going to burn this place down, and I'm going to get sued. And I talked to the guy, and he said, the user, and he said, he goes, yeah, I stretched my feet and I've been kicking the power cord, and it bent the prongs. And he goes, I kind of straightened them out, and I just put it back in there and it started working again. And I'm like, dude, you can't do that. You broke an electrical connection. So obviously it was shorting out, and then it caused, so we replaced that box, and there was no other issue. Yeah. So that's kind of how we developed the product. And then going back to, the kind of US thing, our plan long-term is, now that we have an online presence, which launched a week ago, and right now, I think as you saw, there's only the bases available online. We do have work surfaces that'll be up this week, but our main, most of our clients in the commercial realm want that base. They have their own work surfaces, or they're matching something. The other thing I look at is with home users, we're trying to focus on, you can go online and buy an institutional looking desk anywhere for about the same price as mine. So there's about 3 companies that are really good at it. We are price comparable to those companies. Commercial office furniture dealers, we're about 30 to 40% less than them. So in the world that I'm used to distributing, we're crushing it. I just had a conversation with the Pennsylvania, an entity within Pennsylvania. Within the state, a state facility. And we talked about it. He said, no brainer. He said, done. I'll just start ordering them. If we have problems with them, then you're going to have to take them back and we won't use you anymore. But that's kind of how they do it. But it was, we were saving them $300 a unit. And we're talking about our unit's $495. So if that gives you perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge price cut for them. So that's, especially when you scale, that adds up very quickly.
Oh yeah. And we're talking about healthcare industry is having a huge problem with profits right now, because they can't charge the patient any more money, but their costs are rising, and they've hit this point of no return on their pricing. And they can't figure out profitability. So I think the average hospital profit is 2.3%. So if you imagine, let me go back. Primary care is 2.3%. The other, surgeries and catastrophic healthcare is around 6%. So that primary care is a loss leader for them. So when we go and talk to people like these major hospitals, and you're taking one line item, which will be the biggest line item that you have to buy over the next years, that's not replacing another item. So you have ADA conversions, you have reasonable accommodations, people are coming in with back injuries. And then on top of it, they've gone from having to buy a $5,000 workstation that now they need a table because they're paperless and it's an open environment. It's all these things. So these companies have said, well, instead of paying $300 for a table, we can spend $800 for a standing. Yeah. So they're willing to do that. Well, if we're saving them $300 a unit, and now they're buying hundreds of years, which even if you're just using them on reasonable accommodations alone, I should probably explain that. Reasonable accommodations is, I have an injury, I go to my employer and I go, hey, my working conditions technically are unreasonable. I can't sit for this long. I have a back injury. And so they'll decide that it's reasonable to modify their workstation to make it healthier for them to work. So they kind of have to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, it's not that your infantry world ever would have entertained this. However, I had to go through. I became a safety rep for the Marine Corps like a year and a half ago, and that's one of the things they talked about. You can get a what do they call it? There's an official name for it, but basically the same thing, like a survey done for your work site, and they can basically tell you like, hey, you need to provide better chairs, better desks, better keyboards or what, I can't remember the official term right now. Ironically, I've heard this now for years, and I seem to always come in on the back end of like, oh yeah, we did that, but now we created an extra workstation for you and you don't have any of that stuff. But it's funny, in my office, there's probably 20 people in my little section, and there's 3 different sections in that little office. And one of the sections, they use Navy dollars for a lot of their funding. Every single one of them has a stand-up desk. But my section is just the motor T guys. So they're like, you're fine. And I'm like, okay, I don't want a stand-up desk. Like sitting in this desk in my broken slump back chair for 8 hours a day is not helping me out here. And which is why when we were joking before we recorded that I'm looking at buying my own, even though the military's like, yeah, we could buy one for you. You just might have to wait. And like, I've been waiting for like 7 months.
Yeah.
So I completely understand the reasonable accommodations. I think that's, I mean, it makes perfect sense because maybe not in the fact that an employee should be able to say, oh no, you're doing this to me, but in the idea that like, yeah, sitting at a desk definitely takes a toll over time. Just in the same way that carrying a 100-pound ruck around in a mountain doesn't help you feel any better about your back.
And actually you could argue that the guy carrying the ruck around is healthier. I don't envy what you have to do. I mean, to sit, I've never had to sit at a desk all day. I've always been in sales, so I'm always out on the road. I'm always, I really can't do it. And, so all those things, standing desk and, being able to move around is all helpful, Yeah, but yeah, I can't imagine, you're right. I can't imagine going, hey, Gunny, I need a reasonable accommodation, and they go, just shut up and get back to work. But again, that is it. You're not in the Navy. Get out of here. Like, go back to your corner.
I mean, and that's the reality. But if you push it far enough, they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to make sure you have those, which makes sense because, I mean, we're supposed to, they're trying to keep us from claiming 100% disability. So
absolutely. Well, do they have P card? Isn't there anybody like with a P card there that can just kind of on the fly that has a company like a kind of a credit card? That can just kind of go, hey, I kind of slid this in there.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/militarymillionaire. Now, why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. I listen to Audible every single day on my commute to and from work. Now, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/militarymillionaire.
So they've gotten a lot stricter about the ServMart purchases. I know back in, well, I'm sure it was probably even better. It's probably been getting stricter as we go. But like when I first joined, I joined in 2008. And when I first joined, a Lance Corporal could sign off on what was needed in the office. Marines were getting, the Benchmade knives for deployments and Oakleys and nice boots and all kinds of crazy things that you're like, we got issued one. Yeah, but we want this one and just writing stuff off. Right. And it's like over time, it's gone from the Lance Corporal being able to approve stuff to the sergeant, to the staff NCO, to now it's like an officer has to sign off on whatever you buy. And because of that, and because of budget restrictions, there's much less, hey, we're just going to buy this and, hey, just purchases with the budget. So we have been ordering these things now for, I don't know, 3 months, like the Veridesk or whatever, just to stick on top of a desk.
Yeah.
It's been like 3 or 4 months that they've been like, yeah, we got those on order. But what happens is as soon as something like paper comes up that's a necessity, then the desk is pushed. And so it's like a continual, like, they're on the list. Yep, they're on the bottom of the list, but they're on the list. And one day we'll get to do the rest of the list. And it
always gets kicked down.
Yeah. And I'm in the same, like what you said, like 4 years ago, you told me I was going to be sitting at a desk for hours a day. I would have told you that I wouldn't re-enlist. I'm a motor T guy. I've spent my first few years hanging out with cat platoons and, rolling around in the desert and living the dream. And then I was a recruiter. So I was walking around all the time. And then now it's like I've gone from motor pool to, king of my castle at the highest level you can go in motor T, but king of the castle means sitting in a windowless vault. So it's like, hey, this doesn't feel very kingly here.
Yeah.
So it's a weird, and I've been wrestling with it. In fact, I was talking with my wife earlier today. Like, I don't get it. Like, I'm eating right. I had knee surgery, but I'm finally back to PTing, and yet I feel worse than I felt in a long time. And I've realized that's what it is. It's just being stagnant at work.
It's real. It's and especially like there's all these statistics too about like some of the most unhealthy it's that, and it's working at night. So like if you work sedentary and you work at night, you're in by far the worst category. And I'm talking in comparison to coal miners. I mean, really, it's like they're saying, hey, this is really unhealthy, because when you're working at night, one, there's not good food available. During the day, you can go to a healthier place for lunch now. You can do all this stuff, but they're basically sedentary. I mean, they do move around like nurses or 911 operators. It's the unhealthiest profession. I mean, bless them for doing it, because it needs to be done. If you want to talk about somebody that deserves to make $1 million a year and they don't, 911 operators, if you have ever been in one of those facilities, very little sunlight,
no organic food.
Yeah, no organic food, like sometimes 12 hours a day, because they can't just leave. If their replacement's not there, they can't, they have to stay. And, they're eating out of a vending machine, essentially. It's one of the most unhealthiest places I've ever seen, or like call centers, especially like 911 centers, because they just can't leave, and it's a good job. I mean, it's a well-paying job. So I think a lot of people don't want to quit because they're trying to replace that pay, but it's a real struggle now in the office, and where it used to be, especially in the Marine Corps, it used to be kind of like, it's like, no, I'm with you. I wouldn't be able to sit, and especially if you're in a bad chair or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seriously considering buying my own desk for the office and just be like, all right, I'm good, guys. So
yeah. And as long as you can take it with you,
yes.
It's a thing. And yeah, that's Veridesk. It's funny. Like you mentioned that that's a prime. That was one of that price point is who I pursued. Is the reason ours is $495 is I think their medium model is like $499 or something like that. But it definitely provides a solution in certain circumstances,
Yeah. But I like yours, like the idea of being able to just like push a button and the desk rises and the desk lowers, rather than like those things you like reaching across the desk and try to reach underneath and like pull it up to stand up, and then you're like, okay, I think that's the right height. You're trying to, that I've seen one or two people like slam it down and all this stuff goes everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and they flip. If you lean, you're not paying attention. You lean on it, it can tip. The other thing is, where do you put your coffee? So you have this big contraption. One, it's always on your desk. So even when you're sitting, it's on your desk. It's not out of the way. And then it's fine. I mean, it serves a purpose. I think the theory is it's cheaper because people have seen the standing desk at $800-900, and then this thing is $400 or $500. And now you can get them you can buy one on those on Amazon for $100. I mean, obviously it's not as sophisticated, but it goes up and down. And if that's what you want, and I definitely think there's a market for that. But yeah, I mean, in going back into like product development and things like that, if finding those niches and finding those, that was the hardest part for me. Is I thought I wanted to do a product for a long time, but it's like, where's the hole? Like what am I? And then you kind of think of, am I that smart to be able to come up with the new wheel and that kind of thing, which I don't think we've done that, but I kind of got into a market some people are already in, and then we're just marketing it differently. The online companies have been selling the at-home user. I basically took that online model and take it to a commercial marketplace,
Man. So it's just a cool story. I mean, everything that you've done, but it flows together really well. And it's cool to me to be able to, there's something cool about being able to say like, oh yeah, I'm kind of building this online presence and, but it's totally different when it's like, yeah, I built this product, this tangible thing that you can like go click. And I think that's really cool. And the fact that you didn't let it stop you, that American manufacturers were kind of telling you to F you, and which, I see that. And you mentioned that earlier and I wanted to touch on it. the veteran community busting chops about not working with veterans. And I get it, right? And there's definitely something about being American made, and that's like something we walk around and say, yeah. But man, sometimes the veteran community is just way too focused on tearing each other down. But anyway, the reality is, like, that's great. But if you can't afford to cut your teeth in a business because you went with an American manufacturer, is it more noble to die because you went with a more expensive manufacturer, or is it more noble to provide a better service and a better product because you were willing to look outside the US? And I think, hey, look, at the end of the day, I think building a business that actually succeeds as a veteran is way more noble than saying, yeah, I bought from American manufacturers, but I never got off the ground.
Right. Well, and I think the very, very important part of this is that kind of have neglected is that when you think you're buying one, so if you're buying one of these desks, it's not being made here. They're being sold everywhere. So you can go to these manufacturers, and I don't want to name them because I guess evidence of exactly where it comes from. But I've been dealing with the office furniture industry for 22 years. And I've even been consultant for these manufacturers for 4 or 5 years. And this is what they do. So you have a major office furniture manufacturer, and they essentially assemble things, right? So they go to an OEM manufacturer, they get parts. So if it's a panel, they'll spot weld it together and then they cover it with the fabric. But that, they're not bending steel and they're not doing it. And that's great. That's still manufacturing.
Yep.
With a product like this is how it works. They make the panels, they make the work surfaces, they make all these things. That's great. It's good American jobs. With a product like this, they order it from China. And this is how they do it. So they go through they'll go to an importer who then either is their own broker or works with another broker who works with the company in China. So it's usually a guy that speaks the language. He's from there. He knows American business and Chinese business. He's a broker. He negotiates the deal. They sell it to this importer. They pay that importer to bring the product in. So there's 3 or 4 people taking that money before it's even hit a dealer. Then the dealer is expected to pay $700 a unit because all those people had to get paid. Then they need to sell it to the consumer. So now you have a product that's $1,000 that you could buy for $500. So what we've done is we just went direct to that manufacturer. So we're not doing anything that anyone else isn't doing. And I defy you. I've seen all these products. There's the same markers on them. There's the same identifiers. When I'm having a conversation with a manufacturer because we're negotiating product, I ask these questions and it's not a secret. They go, of course. Yeah. Like, we're not making those. Like, you crazy? We're not making those. You know how much it would cost if we made it? Like, this isn't a secret. It's not. And I think that a lot of people, when they have that argument, like, why aren't you making this in the US? The one you bought isn't made in the US.
No, it's maybe assembled.
It maybe assembled. Well, so by that matter, we assemble it in the US. So,
true.
It's kind of a fruitless argument. And I think a lot of the people that I've encountered that are very passionate about that argument, they just don't understand how it's done today. And I hate to call anybody naive, but it's just not how it works.
It sounds like half the conversations I have with people about things going on in the political realm or the world or current events or anything. And I'm like, so which media outlet did you listen to? Oh,
right.
Would you consider them to be objective? Because I don't think they are. And
absolutely.
I think you should probably do some homework. Or the people who read the headline. That's my favorite. They read a headline and then they have all these great thoughts. And you're like, did you read the article? No. Well, probably would have realized this, and this had you read the article.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's all these added things. It's like, well, if I'm hiring 40 people to assemble these and sell these, like, that's 40 American jobs. Like, why isn't that? Believe me, I want everything to be made here. I think it can be done. And we're going to have some of the parts and start inserting some of the parts we use and be able to have it done. But I can't do it until we have volume. And, but to your point, like with the confirmation bias is my favorite. With the articles where they go, no, there was a study done by, MIT or whoever, Harvard did a study, and I can find you 3 studies that say what I think too. And
you're my new favorite person. I have royally pissed off somebody that I work with about a year ago, and I'm not going to name names or specific situations because, but it was exactly that. He was just going off about science and studies. And I was like, look, man, you realize you can find a study to prove any theory you have if you look hard enough. Somebody did it for all that is holy. There's just an exorbitant amount of not even information, but like fasting, right? We'll use fasting is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Fasting is extremely healthy. You do a 24-hour fast, a 48-hour fast to cleanse your body. There's all kinds of research, but you'll never see it anywhere because guess who pays for studies? Not people that make money off you not buying products.
Food companies, yeah.
Yeah. So, fat's bad. Why? Well, because I saw this study. Oh, sugar's bad. Why? Because I saw this sugar-free company do a study. And so it's funny to me because I'm like, have you ever fasted? Like, yeah. Did you feel okay? Yeah, I felt amazing.
Yeah.
You don't see any studies on that. Oh, that's because nobody makes money off that study. So.
Right. Yeah. I got in a discussion with the vegan thing is I think it is a healthy thing. I'm not against it, but it tends to be that people think it's the only way. And that's where I don't believe in absolutes.
No,
I think that different things work for different people. And of course there's some common sense things, right? If I'm on the McDonald's diet, well, of course, but is that the meat that you're comparing? Is it McDonald's meat that you're comparing, or is it like grass-fed, farm-raised beef that you have access to? So it's I don't know, different things for different people, and especially us as business people. I don't have the luxury of caring. I mean, I care who's going to be president, and all I can do is vote and do that thing. And then whoever's president, I'm going to go, you're the commander in chief, and I need to operate my business. I'm more worried about that. So I need to now develop strategies based on who's on office, and it affects me in that way. But I'm probably going to get a lot of flack, but I don't really care. You know what I mean? I vote and I do that and I move on. I'm not upset by it. I think if we get mired down in it, what are we going to, I need to operate my business.
We recently installed cable TVs, 1 or 2 in the office. Just, I don't know, a nice gesture from the CEO because we have 24-hour watch, no cell phones, So I guess that's part of it is like, there are definitely nights where I'm sure my night watch is sitting there with a book like, oh my God, this is the most miserable thing I've ever done in my life. Because the internet's down half the time. You know how it goes. It's like, I got no internet. I got no phone. I have no windows. I have no, like at some point it's just, you go crazy. So install TVs. Great. But I keep getting flack because I turn it off during the day. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, for one, I don't like people. It's right behind me. So I'm like, I don't like people hovering around my desk watching the news. And for 2, I don't like watching the news. It's just like what the two strongest emotions, and I explain it to everyone. I'm like, the 2 strongest emotions that the news panders to are anger and fear. Neither of those is going to do you any good in life, but that's what you're watching and you watch the news. So like find not Fox, not CNN, not, like no matter what you watch, like you gotta find an objective outlet. And the beautiful thing is, and I try to tell them all this, is like, if something really matters, you guys will tell me. I'll know. Like if something really bad happens, I promise I won't be in the dark. But as far as who said what at the debate, I can read the highlight reel in 5 minutes instead of watching 3 hours of people just griping at each other. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and the other side to that is I do the same exact thing, by the way. And I don't know if you were aware of this. That's a Tim Ferriss philosophy.
Oh,
the 4-hour work week.
Love me some Tim Ferriss.
That's what he does.
That's probably where I got it originally.
What's that?
That's probably where I got it originally.
Yeah. That's it's definitely where I got it, and and my life is exponentially better. I'm not missing out on anything. I don't think. It still permeates my life. And like Tim Ferriss had said, if he hasn't heard anything in a while, he'll ask a waiter. Like if he's in a restaurant, he'll go, "Hey, what's the biggest thing in the news today?" and they'll tell him and they go, I'm going to read about that. And then he'll, look up an article, read, and then he moves on. And I noticed that I just feel better, I'm happier.
Absolutely.
That's like the Facebook arguers and all that, like getting caught up in that. So negative,
I just unfollow people. Like, I don't want to unfriend you. I don't dislike you, but I don't want to see the negativity that you're spreading across my feed right now.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah. If you unfollow, they have no idea. And it's great. My news feed is so much better now.
And then you didn't offend them.
And for everyone who's listening to this, who's about to make some comment, I unfollow you, whether you are Republican, Democrat, straight, gay, white, black, or whatever, if you are a negative Nancy on my feed. Okay.
Are you guys seeing that in the Marine Corps? Like how it's divided and my experience, my Marine Corps experience, especially when you're in the infantry, is you're not really mixed with other ages. It's 18 to 22. That's who you're with essentially. And if you have a 25-year-old sergeant, and that's it. That's my experience. So from your perspective, having been in a while, and in today's climate, is it the same as you think as other workplaces, or what you're like with this guy's a Democrat, this guy's a Republican? And
man, so I'm in a weird office right now because, I've been in 11 and a half years and I'm one of the youngest permanent personnel there. We have some TAD Marines that do 6-month shifts, but, I work in an office where it's like master guns, major, lieutenant colonel, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, whatever. And, so there's a very big age. I mean, we've got everything from, I think, like 52 or 53 is our oldest Marine down to like a couple, 20-year-olds. So it's a very much more diverse age range. I think we still do a very good job of remaining objective. I mean, obviously you can tell by talking with people kind of what their beliefs are, but there's still a very good job of keeping politics out of things. And, I think that's great. I think it's incredible. I think one of the greatest things the military does is off putting that off limits, because those discussions are often so unproductive and so negative and such a deterrent to a workspace. And so we're able to, I was in a discussion yesterday with a gentleman. He's a GS position civilian. And he was one of the guys, hanging out around the water cooler, which is now my TV, and very smart guy, very clearly has completely different belief systems than I do. But we were able to have a conversation about it where you can tell that we were having a conversation and we both did not agree with the other, but it was very professional. And it was based on, the discussion was hovering around how the media spins things and that side of things, but it didn't realm into beliefs or attacks or he said, she said. And I think as long as you can keep it to that, you're still being at least somewhat productive. So the military still does a good job of keeping it professional in that realm, which I'm very glad for.
Well, that's great. Yeah. My favorite response is, yeah, maybe. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way. If somebody I've just been around long enough that I know that I've been wrong. I've had complete beliefs that I was, immersed in, that I was like, there's no way that this is wrong. And then I'm like, what was it tell me? So I don't really commit to anything. I mean, there's certain things that I believe to be the right thing to do. There's certain things that, obviously we all have our ethics and morals and those kind of things. But as far as, the opinion that somebody's giving me could sound outlandish, but that could be my opinion in 5 years. And then I'll go, why am I going to argue with you? And that's why I don't, like I said, I don't believe in absolutes. If it's a subjective thing, I go, yeah, maybe I don't, where do we go when we die? I don't, if you're not saying I don't know at some point, we all have a theory, right? You lay out your theory and go, but I don't know. I've never died.
No,
I don't, I know what I believe. And that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. I always tell people, like, if you're in a debate with someone, a heated debate especially, if you can't pause and say, what is one part of their argument that I agree with, and you can't think of anything, then you need to just step away from the argument because you're not thinking rationally. Because no matter what debate we're having, there is something, like, not to get into the political realm, but we'll use abortion, which everybody loves or hates, and I'm not going to speak on viewpoints, but whether you agree with it or disagree with it, there are things that about it that are pros and there are things about it that are cons. And if you can't find one thing about any argument, guns or whatever, that you agree with on the opposing spectrum, then it's not because there isn't anything. It's because you're emotionally invested rather than logically invested, and you're not going to be able to make any progress in this argument anyway. So you might as well just walk away. People hate that, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. If that's like debate 101, you have to be civil, and you can't do that if you're emotionally involved.
Yeah. Well, and plus you have to be hearing the other person, right? I mean, if you're not, people seem to have these canned arguments where you respond, and then they have this canned argument that is closest related to what you just said, but it's not exactly related to what you just said. And you're like, wait, I didn't say that. I didn't. I was in a bar, and I was with a friend of mine, and we were trying to have a conversation, and somehow we got into, I don't know if you know, Pittsburgh's like on the tipping point, the tip of the spear with autonomous vehicles. So Uber, ATC is killing it here. I mean, they're like, I shouldn't have said that, but because there was the person in there, but they're doing great things. Argo is here. Otto has a presence here, and these are, there's 3 right off the top of my head, autonomous vehicle companies right here in Pittsburgh. So we got in this discussion, and this guy is arguing against autonomous vehicles. Like, he's like, nah. And we were saying, hey, in 10 years, that's how it's going to be. I mean, your tractor trailers, right? That's the way it's going. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And this was a guy that worked for a major car company who works in there on autonomous vehicles, who was kind of arguing against, he was making these weird arguments. And then finally I started to ask him, don't you work in the industry? Why would you work in an industry that you think is going to fail? Like, you don't believe in it. You don't. And we came down to, he just likes to argue. He doesn't even believe what he was saying. And when I started dissecting it, I'm like, yeah, but you're saying this. And what? Why? And he goes, I said, you just like to argue. And he said, I've been told that before. So it was like, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. It's like, you're trying to get me frustrated, and that's a hobby for you. I don't want to be around you. Like, I'm sure he's a good guy, right? Who knows why he does what he does. But
that's funny.
But I'm always trying to be aware of that.
Yeah, definitely a lot of that out there these days. People just stirring the pot. You got to try to watch out. All right. So if a 18, 19-year-old was to come up to you asking you for advice about trying to build a business or get started in sales, or, one of those worlds that you have expertise in, what do you think you would tell them?
I would say, obviously, like, take in all the information around you. It's like, definitely listen to the people that have been there, but don't take that as the only truth. We need to have respect for people that have been around. You have to calculate that. I kind of came up having this belief that the end all be all was with people who came before me. And then when I had ideas, those were the people that were the naysayers, that this won't work, that won't work, this won't work. And I found that I was a smart person. I did know what I was talking about. But you have to be very careful with that path. So I would say, believe in yourself, have faith in yourself, but be humble about it.
I like that. I think that's good, because I think a lot of people almost give too much weight to advice they hear, and they let it stop them. And I mean, where would people like Elon Musk be if they listened to all the people who said, oh, yeah, maybe you should keep your feet on the floor?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just accept that maybe you think different than other people do. I struggled with that. And, I wish I hadn't. I wish I embraced it more.
Awesome. What is a resource, a book, course, website, or whatever that you would recommend for anybody getting started in business?
Listen and follow Gary Vaynerchuk. If anything, he's just telling you to do it. He's telling you have time. You have, I got a ton of advice. I wouldn't be doing anything in social media. Over the last 3 years, I've really hiked up my social media presence, all that kind of thing, which has helped me tremendously. And I don't, so he's the guy for me right now.
I'm a huge fan. He just doesn't sugarcoat stuff, which is, as a Marine, it's really refreshing to hear somebody tell me that I'm being a freaking moron.
Right. Yeah. And he has predictions. I mean, he has. If you watch him, maybe that's confirmation bias because I follow him and he tells me that he had predictions. But some of the things are undeniable. I know the latest thing he said is LinkedIn is the next thing. That kind of thing. So him and Tim Ferriss too.
Yeah, I like Tim Ferriss a lot too. 4 Hour Work Week's probably one of the most read books that I have on my Audible list. So
yeah, that's great. And sure. Yeah, I was surprised that it wasn't exactly what I thought. It's not like it's just about being smart about how you do things instead of, it's not just like get rich quick kind of book that I thought it was.
In fact, it reminds me that I've listened to it on Audible a million times. I need to buy the hard copy of that book. I put that one up behind me on my little wall of 3 or 4 books that I like because it's a good one. All right. So before we wrap this up, where can people get a hold of you if they have questions or they want to check out your product?
Okay. So the newest thing is, so naturalelevations.com is where the product is. And now, like I think I'd mentioned, right now it's only the base that's up. We do have work surfaces, and there'll be some work surfaces up this week. But awesome. Right now, naturalelevations.com. If you just want to reach out, our standard informational pages, naturaloffice.net. Hit me up on LinkedIn, Brian Marzka, Natural Office on Instagram, Facebook, Brian Marzka. Just reach out, message me, DM me, whatever you want. I'm always up to talk about anything too. So even if you just have like ergonomic questions, how do I sit healthier, and you're not trying to buy product, I'm happy to give any information that anybody wants.
Awesome. Well, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'll make sure that I put all that stuff down in the show notes for all my listeners, so you can go check this out. There's a pretty decent chance you'll see me with one of these desks in the near future. So, Brian, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day.
All right, you too, man.
Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.